Okay, we're ready to get started. Will everybody have a seat, please? Thank you. It is now 6:02, and I'd like to open the meeting. And Adam, will you please take roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Bartolo Square North, Nate Castillo. Bartolo Square South, Justin Richards. Blackstock North, Nancy Rand. Blackstock South, Christopher Bissonette. Here. Bryce Canyon North, John Hike. Here. Cabrillo, Rainey Steffen. Cal Giesler, Teresa Salazar. Carriage Square, Guido Goldner. Here. Channel Islands, Tom McAnally. Here. College Estates, John Beck. Diamond Bar, Dennis Ralph. East Village, Ronald Arejo. Here. El Rio West, Dan Ryberg. 5 Points Northeast, Pat Brown. Fremont North, Dave Ebbett. Fremont South, Kim Winch. Hobson Park East, Roger Poirier. Hobson Park West, Cecilia Ravello. Hollywood by the Sea, Michelle Carrillo. Kamala Park, Robert Lucio. La Colonia, Ramon Lopez. Lemonwood Eastwant, Larry Stein. Here. Orchard Park, Diana Belzy. Here. Oxnard Dunes, Lisa Hewitt. Here. Oxnard Shores, Walt Hagedem. Here. Pleasant Valley Estates, Rosanna Biggerstaff. Here. Redwood, Carlos Quiroz. Rio Lindo, Sandy Diaz. Here. River Park, Paul Schnebelin. Rose Park, Afonso Arroyo. Here. Sea Air, Edward Castillo. Seaview Estates, Azak Calif. Here. Sierra Linda, Sergio Garcia. South Bank, Debbie Aravello. Here. Southwind, Sofia Vega. Via Marina, Doug Tauber. There he is. Hi Doug. Wagon Wheel, Amanda Muir. West Village, Michael Gleason. Wilson, Angela Whitecomb. And Windsor North, Andres Sanchez. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, Lisa, will you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the minutes from our last meeting on December 4th, 2024 is up there. Please, everybody, take a look at the minutes and make any recommendations for changes or make a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second by Lisa, and a second by Mr. Bissonette. And for all in favor to approve the minutes as written, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? No. Okay, so minutes are approved, dated December 4th, 2024. Thank you. Okay. Okay, item D, public comments. At this time, a person may address the INCO on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the INCO. The INCO cannot enter into a detailed discussion or take any action on any items presented during public comments at this time. Such items may only be referred to Executive Secretary for administrative action or scheduled on a subsequent agenda for discussion. Public comments on items on the agenda will be considered at the time of consideration of the agenda. Okay, so I understand that there are a couple of people that are going to be making comments today, and they are going to be making comments based on, which item is it? On the Avalon homes. So that probably those comments should wait until after the public comments, and then we will allow you to make any comments after that section of the meeting. And with that, go ahead.
My name is Larry Stein. I was elected chairman of Lemonwood past June. Joe Avalard had died quite some time ago, so we're going to have our first neighborhood meeting this week from Thursday, a week from tomorrow. I'm somewhat concerned about several issues. I'll try to be brief. The first issue I have is the quality of air at Teal Club Urban Specific Plan site. There are several people that are concerned that lead-based air is taking place at Oxnard Airport, and the air will be drifting over to the site, and currently is drifting over to the site. The city refuses to have the air tested. The city refuses to acknowledge that the air is bad, but the lead is coming from the plains because that's a natural occurrence. The city refuses to have the air tested. They've made no recommendations that the air is safe, nor have they said that the air is not safe. And based on the fact that the city has not said that the air is safe, one can only conclude the air is not safe, but the city will not make a determination as to whether the air is safe or not. The second issue I wish to address is the Urban Water Master Plan. The City Council has not fully funded the Urban Water Master Plan. The Urban Water Master Plan called for the recycling of 14,000 acre-feet of recycled water every year. In order for the water to be recycled, ASR, or Advanced Storage Recovery Wells, need to be built. The city has yet to determine where the site of these wells are going to be. Now, for those who can't remember things, back in 2010, the city staff went before the city council and asked for water bonds for 2010 to build the ASR wells as well as for the advanced treatment water facility. The advanced treatment water facility got built, but instead of building the ASR wells, they built an auditorium for $24 million. Now, please bear in mind that 3 years prior to the city staff presenting the presentation, the city staff met for 3 years to negotiate with the water district of Pleasant Valley. So why would the city negotiate with the Pleasant Valley Water District, with the Pleasant Valley Water District, if they did not intend to build the wells to make the ASR wells available? If the ASR wells were built, then the farmers at the Pleasant Valley Water District would not get any water. So the last 10 years, 15 years, the farmers have been getting water from the advanced water treatment facility while we're paying the debt service on the advanced water treatment facility. We're also subsidizing the great water to the tune of $10 million a year. Meanwhile, we're also paying $24 million a year to import water. Had the ASR wells been built, then we would not have to be spending $24 million a year on recycled water. These and other issues should be brought before the city council. The city council should be encouraged to approve the complete funding for the Urban Water Master Plan that was supposed to be built for all these homes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Hi, Doug.
Hey,
Welcome.
how you doing? Good evening, Chair and committee members, staff, and members of INCO. My name is Doug Partello. I'm a 38-year resident of Oxnard. I'm a former neighborhood council chair of the Cabrillo Neighborhood Council. The couple issues I'd like to talk about tonight, one that I spoke with the mayor about, is I've been very passionate about volunteering. I've been doing a lot of work improving the landscaping on the perimeter of my neighborhood and other areas of Oxnard, cleaning up homeless encampments and other areas. And there's a lot of volunteers out there, and I think there's not many that are known about. I'm kind of known about because I post all the time my activities with pictures and that. And a lot of people know about Marvin Boos. God bless him. Boy, he's in his 70s and he's out there still picking up trash and cleaning up Oxnard, and just wonderful. But here in Oxnard, we have a lot of volunteers, and not all of them get recognition or support. So I think that Oxnard could do a lot better in recognizing and supporting our volunteers, because we have a lot of wonderful volunteers. And so the city of Ventura has a great webpage that people can kind of connect to volunteer opportunities. And Oxnard doesn't have that. So I think there are ways in which the city can kind of help support those volunteer efforts. And we can encourage more people to volunteer, because I think, like, you guys are volunteers, right? And you know, you're recognizable and you get recognition for that, as you should. But there's a lot that don't. And I think that we could encourage more to get involved. The other thing I wanted to touch on is it's been over 4 years that our city treasurer has been in a legal battle over his position as city treasurer. And so that's ended now. Hopefully it's ended. So there was a second district judgment that came down 3-0, and Phil Molino, he won that court battle. And now it's just a matter of, you know, how his department is going to come back the way it was. So there are a lot of changes made, and now it's just a matter of getting our city treasurer back and getting him the resources and the funding and everything else he needs to run that department. because the court's spoken, and they said that we do need our city treasurer, and it said that not through legerdemain, which is a pretty fancy word for saying trickery, may the city unelect the city treasurer. And that's what happened. And so I think it's really important that we get our city treasurer back to looking at all the finances and the documents and the things that city treasurers are supposed to do according to state law. So I think that's a really important point for our new council, our new mayor, to really thoughtfully consider how that's going to look and to get our city treasurer back the resources that he needs to do his job he was elected for. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Hi.
Hi, I'm Angela Whitecomb. I'm the chair of the Wilson Neighborhood and I'm also your Parks and Recreation Commission chair. I just wanted to piggyback on the theme of volunteerism. The city used to have things like volunteering and policing and city-sanctioned volunteer programs. Right now, the only ones that I can really think of that are city-sanctioned is City Corps. And I don't even know how much of that is still volunteer. As a Parks Commission, we made a recommendation years ago to try to bring in a park ambassador program so that people could volunteer in their parks and do either light weeding, some painting, just like small maintenance program, things to activate our parks and make them more beautiful. You see a lot of this done maybe with the Little League program, but imagine each neighborhood adopting their own park and kind of working with the city to find out what's sanctioned, going through training so that they know how to do things appropriately and responsibly, so they don't take on things that they shouldn't be taking on. Like, they're not police. they're not trimming trees. They're just doing things to make things beautiful. And I would really like to see the city do a city-sanctioned program. That way, people are the city's insured, the people are insured, the city attorney doesn't have freak out at other, which is pretty common thing. But other cities have this program. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just go and see where a city is doing this, find out how they're getting it done. So that's something I would really encourage each neighborhood to work towards, so that we can work to keep beautifying our parks and public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online? I don't see anybody. Is there anybody else that want to make a public comment? Okay, well, thank you. Let's go to item E, subject, swearing in of Inco Executive Board. Recommendations that the mayor of the city of Oxnard swear into office the new members of Inco Executive Board for calendar year 2025. With that, I'd like to ask the mayor to come on up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's an honor for me to be here partaking in this swearing in. To much Angela's point, Partella's point, I apologize. It's great to see a lot of volunteer work out here, right? Things like this wouldn't happen without all of us volunteering. So thank you for that. So absolutely my honor to be here doing this. Okay, so we're going to do the oath of office. And when I say I, if you can just state your name, and we're going to do it all at the same time, okay? All right, so here we go. And I'll go slow, right? So we don't have to memorize the whole thing. Ready? I. Okay, good. Alfonso won this one. Do solemnly affirm that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I will uphold the principles, purposes, and bylaws of the INCO, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Okay, wonderful. You are all sworn in. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. My pleasure.
Chair? Chair? There you go. Sign yours.
This is for you.
That one's for you.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John. Sounds good.
Okay, let's move on. Subject, Carnegie Art Museum. That the Inco General Membership receives a verbal report on the Carnegie Art Museum, followed by question and answers. All right. With that, Alex, you're going to be presenting tonight, right?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me here. Hello, all the chairs and other guests, I suppose. Okay, I'm going to give you a brief overview, and then I'll jump to cut to the chase about the actual status of the Carnegie. So everybody knows it's been closed since 2019 due to budget constraints back then. And over time, in thinking through what the future should hold, I brought a concept, and I want to be clearer and very, very concise about the words here. I brought a concept to the City Council's Community Service Committee in September of 2023. And in that presentation, I made the discussion laying out why I do not believe that the Carnegie can be a successful art museum, and specifically is a municipal art museum. And my recommendation at the time was the future of the Carnegie could instead become the Carnegie Arts Center. So not a formal museum, but an art center. And the center would be, initially the concept was during the day and during the summer daytime, we would provide formal art instruction for the city's youth. In the evenings, it could serve as a professional art gallery where local artists can display and sell their artwork. Now, of course, that would run like a proper art gallery, meaning the city would get a share of the revenues, which of course would go into the building. And then finally, on the weekends, it could be used as a special events rental facility constrained only by the building size, meaning whatever the fire code says is the limitation for the number of people, that's all that would be allowed for an event. So that was the concept. The committee wanted me to go away and do some more research because advocates for the Carnegie opposed that. Of course, understandably, they want the museum to reopen as a museum. I still, to this day, do not believe that that can be successful. And one of the points I made to everybody was, find me a municipal art museum in California. They don't exist anymore. And that has to do with the museum profession and the nature of what it takes to run a professional art museum. That is serious business. Okay, so I go away to do some research, and one of the things I'm informed by an actual museum expert is, besides for the various issues about the museum's life and the museum's future, it turns out that the Carnegie Art Museum, for whatever reasons, in addition to art, also contains Native American artifacts. Now, the museum, again, there is a history of how it came to be and its evolution over time, but ultimately, because it's a municipal art museum, the city has the legal responsibility of the art collection. And there are national museum standards for caring for an art collection. The city council has the legal responsibility for the art collection. What I cannot find in the records over the years is the city council having ever formally accepted the acquisitions to the collection. So there is an interesting dilemma that I've got to deal with. But in 1990, there's a federal law passed, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. Then a little bit later, California enacted its own version to speed up that process. And the essence of that federal law was an admission that Native American artifacts should have never been stolen and put in museums on display. And it's especially demeaning when the people are actually here. I take that responsibility seriously. This museum, over all these decades, has been out of compliance with both the federal and the California laws. So the thing I have to do now, and I'm working on this to try to find the right experts to come and do this. Now, since 1990 and going forward, both the federal and the state laws have also been amended and evolved and expanded and presumably improved. So right now, I cannot even, because I'm right now the de facto museum director, whether I like it or not. And I actually don't mind it. I've done that before. But under the California's recent updates, I cannot, or any of our staff cannot actually lay our hands on the artifacts. We have to have a Native American expert doing it. We can be in the room, but we can no longer mess with it. Which means I can't even determine the number of items. We think there's at least 600 items. We don't know. We know that there are also, besides for artifacts, because I have personally seen this, before I learned about this, I actually saw a couple shoe boxes of arrowheads. But we also apparently have human remains, and that's the most important artifacts to figure out. And there's a process. I reviewed the NAGPRA, essentially the rules. So we have to do our best to determine what everything is and where we believe it came from. Then you've got to list it on both a state and a federal website for a certain amount of time. It's not brief. You have to, if you believe you know where the source is, then you have to proactively communicate with the if the tribe is here or the nearest associated. And people in that world can also routinely look at the postings. These websites are updated frequently or routinely, and so that they can become aware that somebody in Oxnard has something that belongs to your ancestors. There's a lot more nuances to the rules. So again, based on the current status of the law, we as regular city staff cannot touch it. So we can't even figure out what categories, how many arrowheads do we have, how many, necklaces, how many bones, where do they come from? Is it all North American? Could it be Central American? And by the way, it could be. So I'm working on trying to find the right consultant to come in and process this for us so that we can come into compliance with state and federal law, get this information out there, and then hopefully get it back into the hands where it belongs. So this right now to me takes priority. We are legally out of compliance, and more importantly in my mind, it's morally and ethically way out of depth here. This should have been handled decades ago. Now, to be fair, we're not the only institution that has this issue. Lots of institutions do. The difference is many of them are actually working through it, right? And I've talked to a few institutions in the region who are doing their own very difficult process to sort it out. So that's where we are with the collection. I also want to assure people there never was, and there is no, and there will be no plan to quote unquote sell the art collection, right? In the proposal to have an art center, we would still retain the essence of the art collection. And then in that process, we might deassess part of it and we might sell part of it, which by the way, are all normal activities of a functioning museum and a functioning collection. But so that's where we are. So it's still, the status is still in limbo. I've got to get this NAGPRA issue taken care of. It's just wrong that we have it and we haven't done much, if anything, to comply with the laws and to get whatever we have back to wherever it should go. So that's where we are. That's it. Yep.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor up for any comments or questions. Please go to the mic.
I have a couple questions. Mr. Nguyen, I'm just curious, do you have an estimated time on when we should start seeing this? Because we had this conversation a year ago to the same effect, and I was hoping today you were going to come with some new information, and we're not getting that. And then also, can we not separate the collection from the building so that we can utilize that building and actually maybe even see some of the collection that is not Native American, some of the more contemporary art that is not in question, and we know who the artists are and where they came from, so that we can move forward with the Carnegie? Because the perpetual state of limbo that we're in right now, we see no light at the end of that tunnel, and it would be really great for us as a community to know that there is a light at the end of that tunnel, so that we can once again celebrate our Carnegie building and our local art. Thank you.
So on the timing, I don't know, because I'm still trying to get the right consultant here, but I can tell you that work, it's going to take time. It's going to be like one of those CIS TV shows. Like, it's going to be like that, except, well, so on the separate the collection from the building, that's not a bad idea. The problem is the council hasn't made a decision that that's not going to be a museum. So that's where I feel stuck, right? So, but as soon as we get a contract underway, we'll let you know. And by the way, as soon as they start posting information on the NAGPRA website. So we'll let you know.
Hello, I'm Isaac Collett from Seaview Estates. Thank you for your report there. I just wanted to let you know and volunteer. One of the executive board members of our neighborhood council is a director at the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. And guess what he does a big chunk of his day is repatriate indigenous artifacts to where they need to go. So if you'd like to talk and need that kind of contact, let
He
me
was
know.
the first person I spoke to. So he's recommended a short
Okay.
list of experts who might be able to do this. I'd actually tried to convince them to do it, but they don't have the time, the resources, the personnel, because they're doing their own. They have a ton.
Yes, they have a quite a
Yeah.
collection. So
Yeah.
okay.
So I did speak to him. Thanks.
Good.
One of the issues I'm concerned about is funding. Now, Mr. City Manager, it's my understanding that from the CFO that we're receiving approximately $60 million a year between the sales tax increase that was approved several years ago, plus the sales tax from Amazon. So how much of that revenue for the next fiscal period can be budgeted for improving the art museum to get it back open to the public? Again, how much of the $60 million is going to public safety when public safety already took 50% of the general fund budget prior to this large increase in sales tax? So if we're having this large increase in sales tax, how much of that can be attributed to public programs such as libraries, parks, street repairs, and how much of that's going to public safety? Because we can certainly use the funds for other programs such as the Carnegie Art Museum, but the city's not being totally transparent how much money is going to be available, because the city seems to want to give public safety large shares of everything when we're already getting large shares beforehand. So the question to you is, how much money are we actually receiving in sales tax revenue from the sales tax increase and from Amazon, and how much is going to be allocated to public safety? And again, you have pension plans distributing money too as well. So what portion of the pension plans going to public safety is coming out of $60 million? So if we can look at these numbers and let us know how much money is actually available for other things other than public safety of the $60 million, if that's the number, what's available? Thank you.
So
Thank you.
all the budget information is available online. So if you want to know where the money goes, it's all online. And Adam, is it possible while I discuss the point about the museum, if you can pull up the budget portal on the city's website? Because it's all there. You can see every single account. With regard to how much can we put towards the museum, again, it depends on the decision the council makes. But I stand behind my recommendation that it cannot be a successful municipal art museum. Now, that doesn't mean some other private entity couldn't take a shot at running a museum there. But then you're going to run into the problem of space. There's only 3,100 square feet there. Right, so that in and of itself is a serious constraint for an actual meaningful, successful museum of any genre. So that's also a problem. Okay, and then this is on the city's webpage. And this is the budget portal. Can you click on it so people can see? And you can go in there and all the information's available. You can look at literally all the accounts. So there you have it, including the budget, obviously. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim from Fremont South, and I may be in the minority here, but I have two kids that are in the arts, and museums are great, but when my kids were growing up here, it was difficult to find a place for them to do the kind of things that you were talking about. I love your idea. I think it's wonderful. Even having some of the art there that he could see, that'd be fine, but having classes there and courses there, I mean, that excites me. And it's hard to find places for your kids to go to because they don't do that in school anymore. So I support your idea. I like it a lot.
Thank you. And I want to expand a little bit about the arts programs. They would be real art instruction. It would not be like after, a fun version of childcare. It'd be real art instruction. Like children would learn light, composition. Well, that's really all I know about art. But the technical stuff. So just like music, like we have the Arts Academy launched where we have musical classes right now, and the students are actually learning to play, to read music, and to play as an ensemble. So they're not just memorizing the tune for the performance for the parents, and then they don't know, anything else. They're actually learning how to play music, read music, and play as an ensemble, because the data shows that apparently that makes you smarter. I didn't get that either. So the arts instruction would also be formal and more meaningful than just after-school play. Thank you.
Like music theory. Hi.
Hi, Deborah Arvalo, South Bank Chair. I, as an educator for 40 years, I'm now retired from the Oxnard School District. We used to have the trilogy, and the trilogy was going to the Gulls Wings, going to the Carnegie Museum, as well as the library. And it was one of the best field trips that we could take besides going to the Santa Barbara Museum or to the Santa Barbara Zoo, which was closest. I just want to request that you really consider opening the Carnegie once you have all the information needed, because it was a jewel. Because we would go, there would be an art instruction. There was a packet, and I wish I could find it, but I couldn't, in my 40 years of teaching, that we used to get a packet with all the different themes with the art in every area of the building, and it was an actual test that we had to take with the students, and it was a field trip. It was a learning experience, and at the very end, we would go ahead and have an art class with an art teacher, and we would choose, as a teacher, the specific theme that we wanted to go ahead and do. It was enriching, and now this is happening throughout California. Everything is done either on privately or parents have to seek out music, art, all the rest on their own. So I implore you to go ahead and truly investigate as fast as you can, because students, as you stated, are empowered by art, music, and all the arts. So as a former teacher, retired, 40 years, I went on that field trip every year. And I know this was before your time, but that was a home away from home for a lot of the kids in the Oxnard School District.
Thank you for that. And I agree. And I don't want to get into decades-long politics about how public education's divested arts and music programs. But I think that's a bigger issue too with everything. Thank you.
Doug?
Good evening, Mr. City Manager. When you talk about, this not being a municipal museum and then being an art center, and then you would bring in an outside entity to manage it and that sort of thing. My concern is just about public access. So, anytime you bring in a private entity to manage, that usually has a cost associated with it, because, they have to pay their staff and whatnot. And much like the tennis center, I have a friend that's a member of that tennis center. It's a public park, and those courts are part of a public park, yet it's run by a private management company. So we were looking for a place to play pickleball, and come to find out that was the closest to where I live, but it's $9 an hour. So, I'm just wondering, the access, because the Carnegie Museum was gifted to Oxnard by the Carnegie family, and it was intended for, everyone to enjoy and to, regardless of your, financial situation. So I'm just wondering, with the plan that, you envision, what would the potential cost, and then what would the potential access to folks that, it might be a hurdle. So, when I thought $9 an hour to play pickleball, no, I went to Port Hueneme, was free, So, and then I was also wondering, the Carnegie family themselves, are there existing family members that have been contacted and are part of that discussion about, what to do with this museum that was gifted to our city and our community? So I was just curious if, there was any feedback from the actual Carney family themselves about that. Thank you.
So a couple things. So first of all, I didn't say it was going to be run by a private organization. I said it would be an art
Okay, you said
center.
it wasn't going to be municipal.
Right.
So it's going to be run by whom then?
No. I didn't say, okay, Municipal Art Museum and Art Center doesn't mean that the art center is private. It's still public.
Okay, so it's going to be run and managed by the city?
Yes.
Okay, and then would there be a cost associated with families, taking
So
advantage of that center?
for the art classes for the youth, that would be part of our youth programs. There's no cost for that.
Okay, good.
The art gallery part of it would be for local artists to show and sell their art. So that's a cost if you want to buy art. But again, we would treat it like a proper art gallery, so some of the revenue would have to come back to the city, but that would be for the building, right? And then if we ever get to it, the weekend special event rentals is just a rental. So that's, again, revenue for the building.
And what type of activities were you envisioning for those type of rentals?
I have no idea. All I know is there's a limit to the number of human bodies that are allowed in the building.
Okay.
So
it'd be
it
anything
would.
From a rock concert to a.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
And then I hear pickleball is awesome in Ojai.
Well, that's pretty far to go.
That's what I've heard.
Miranda Park. It's great.
You can play pickleball at Wilson Park for free.
Oh, they have pickleball there now? I know they're. Yes. Okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah, they taped it up.
Okay, is there anybody online, anybody else that want to make a comment? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, well, I forgot the desk, sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you said how many artifacts were there? You said 600?
At least 600,
Are
but
these primarily local Chumash?
that's the thing, we have no idea yet.
We don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, I
Thank
mean,
you.
that would be almost too easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody, Chris, Lisa? Okay, thank you so much, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll ask you back in a,
I don't know why you're clapping, there was no good news.
yeah. Let's move on. Item E3, Avalon Homes, that the Inco General Membership receives a report on the Avalon Homes subdivision followed by a Q&A. And I'm not sure who's presenting today, sir.
Hi, I'm Tanner Shelton with Jensen Design and Survey. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
We do have a presentation that we're going to have pulled up here so you folks can see it. But as I was saying, my name is Tanner Shelton with Jensen Design and Survey. We're a local civil engineering and land use planning firm headquartered just over the river in Ventura. And we're working with the project developer, which is the Oxnard Shores Company, on this proposal. We're waiting just a second to get the PowerPoint up here.
Okay.
Apologies. The clicker, I think I do right here. Is this it? Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. So this is as we were saying, this is the Avalon Homes project being developed by the Oxnard Shores Company. Toll Brothers is in due diligence to potentially partner with the Oxnard Shores Company, which is a local development company that's built out a lot of the surrounding neighborhood here to construct this project. All right, so this is the proposed project location for folks who might not be familiar with it. The project site is shown by the thick black outline. The site consists of 3 or 4 different APNs. It's roughly 38 acres in size. You can see the site is quite large, and about 77% of it to the northern half there, so that's kind of the upper side of the slide there, is in the resource protection zone. That dashed line in the middle represents the zoning boundary. Everything to the south of that is the coastal residential R2C zone. And then to the south of the project site is the existing Oxnard Dunes neighborhood. The main street up at the very top is 5th Street. And then down to the south, over to the west is Harbor Boulevard. And then to the south, we have Woolley. This is the proposed project summary, kind of the key highlights here. The project is a tentative track map to subdivide the property. When we do the subdivision, it's going to be subdivided into 3 residential development lots. That's about 5.7 acres. 3 community amenity lots, 2 private street and vehicular circulation lots, 2 open space lots, and that's going to be about 29.58 acres. And I'll pull up the site plan in a little bit, and we'll walk through each one of these areas in a little more detail. We're envisioning 56 residential dwelling units on the site. Now, they are condominium units, but they're going to be detached. So they're not condos in the traditional sense where people think shared walls. There's common lots that the units are plotted on, but there's no shared walls here, and we'll walk through that a little bit later on. The units will be served by a private street, so that's not going to be owned by the city. It's going to be owned and maintained by the HOA, but the public will have the right to access and utilize the street. So cost savings for the city of Oxnard. There's going to be a community park, a small community park with playground and community garden. And then the thing I'm most excited about, as someone who does this for a long time, this project has a very substantial open space component to it. About 29.58 acres is going to be conserved permanently as open space, and that's 77% of the total site area. Now, the developer is going to be offering that to the city. Should the city not want to accept it, we'll be looking to partner with a local conservation land trust entity, perhaps Ventura Land Trust, Nature Preserve. These are just people I'm throwing out there, but it would be a certified nonprofit land conservancy potentially as well who could operate that. As I was mentioning a little earlier, this is the proposed subdivision and zoning boundary. So you can see that area kind of in the greenish color up at the top of the plan. That's the area that's zoned for resource protection, meaning that we cannot develop that. And going a step beyond that, we're willing to permanently, via a deed restriction, protect that land as open space. So that's about 77% of the total site area. And then that bottom hatched area below there, 23% of the total site area will be developed. This is the residential site plan here in a little more detail, just so folks can see it. So this land has been zoned for residential development for 40 years when you look back at the city's general plan and zoning. So what we're essentially doing, for those who are familiar with the Oxnard Dunes neighborhood, is we're taking Canal Street, which just kind of dead ends, and running it over to the other dead-end stub at the knuckle, as I call it, of Dune Street, where Dunes kind of loops around into Harbor, and we're making that connection. So this is a long envisioned completion of this community. So we're extending a Canal Street through. As I said earlier, that's going to be a private road, but the public will have the right to access and drive over it. And then we're going to be building homes on either side of it. 56 homes. In terms of setbacks to the surrounding neighborhood, because that's something folks are always interested in, each one of those homes that is on the south or the western side of the road, so the homes that back up to the existing neighborhood, the minimum setback there is 25 feet. So all those homes are going to be at least 25 feet from the southern and western property line of our site. We're also going to be constructing a new, nice, consistent wall there. For those who are familiar, you kind of know it's a hodgepodge of fences, and some are upright, some are not. So we'll be coming through and putting in a nice new wall there for consistency through the neighborhood. So yeah. Community amenities, we'll walk through those a little bit. This is the envisioned community pocket park that we are proposing in the development. It's going to have a small tot lot play area and a community garden for neighborhood residents. And then over at the entry, where we loop back around, where Canal comes through and will connect to Dune Street at the existing stub out, there'll be landscaping there. And there'll also be, we're proposing a trail parking area for the broader open space zone. We'll get in a little more detail later on when we talk about the open space. This is what the private street is going to look like. So we wanted to make this a really residential scale, narrow street that, you wouldn't have cars flying through on it and stuff like that, and be very walkable and landscaped. So that's just a screenshot of what those will look like. 36-foot wide pavement width with sidewalks on both sides where you're adjacent to the homes. When we're bordering the open space to the north, there'll be no sidewalk on that side because we want to have that transition into the natural open space be very seamless. This is kind of the typical unit plotting when I was talking about condominiums that don't touch with each other. So these will look very much like single family homes. You'll have 4 units clustered off of a common driveway or motor court. Each unit will have its own dedicated fenced-in private backyard, which you can see kind of in the rear of those units there. Each unit will have a 2-car garage, and we'll go into the architecture in a little bit further detail in the next slides, but the maximum height of these is 2 stories. We'll walk through the architecture of the plans now. The architecture can kind of best be described as coastal contemporary. As I was saying earlier, for those of you who are familiar with the subdivision that was recently completed down at the intersection of Woolley and Harbor, that's 3 stories. This is going to be a story less, so 2 stories. The idea is to blend more with the less tall residents more towards the rear of that neighborhood. So just some imagery of the architecture. Again, a coastal contemporary style is envisioned right now. This is Plan 2A, Plan 2B. And that's an overview of the architecture. So now the open space. It's 29.58 acres of permanently preserved open space area. There'll be a parking area that's going to be secured kind of near the knuckle there where Dune Street comes back around over to Harbor Boulevard. The idea is that that parking area would be gated so it could be closed at night so that you don't have access to it 24/7, and the preserve would have hours as well. A half-mile trail loop is envisioned. This is going to be very passive. The idea is to preserve the great coastal dune habitat that's there and not interfere it. So when we're talking park and open space, we're not talking coming in with bulldozers and planting grass. The idea is to keep this very much the way it is and do some habitat restoration as well. There's a small ADA accessible loop trail near the entrance. That's kind of that smaller loop in the lower left-hand side of the image in front of you. And as I was saying earlier, this land will be donated to the city or to a land trust and deed restricted as open space. This is just an aerial imagery of the open space we're talking about, just so folks are familiar. It's really cool dune habitat with some kind of willow woodland mixed in there as well. Where we are in the process. So this project's been going on for a little bit. It's kind of been going through the city process and design changes and working collaboratively with city staff to present a project that we think is going to be feasible. An environmental impact report was first prepared for this project in 2019. In 2020, that went out for public comment. We received public comment on it at the time. COVID happened and everything kind of went upside down in everyone's lives, and that included in the development community. So this project kind of languished for a little bit, but we're back and moving ahead with it. So because the EIR had sat for a while, we all thought it would be prudent to update the EIR based upon the things that have happened. It's been 5 years, recirculate the EIR again for public comment, which we're hoping is going to happen in March or April 2025. That's something the developer team has no control of. That's the city and their consultant, which is Rincon Consultants, who are working on that. But we're hoping that's going to go in March or April of 2025. After that, we receive public comment on the EIR. We'll go to Planning Commission and to City Council hearing eventually on the project. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them from the public or from your committee. I am here. We also have John Reichel from Toll Brothers, who's here. Mike Marlowe from the Oxnard Shores Company, unfortunately, was unable to make it, but John and I are here. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. So thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to open up the floor for questions and comments. We'll start with you.
Hi.
I've been following certain projects in the last 20 years, or 30, I forget how many years. And one of these has been the Teal Club's specific plan. I became aware of the air quality issues past summer. Neighborhood chairman brought to my attention that the quality of air might be a matter of concern. It seems that there are airplanes that use lead-based fuels at Oxnard Airport. And lead-based fuels are great for adults. I mean, I'm great breathing air-based fuels because I'm not going any worse than I am right now. Unfortunately, children under the age of 10 and women of childbearing years can be subject to toxicity of the lead-based fuel. So what what studies have you conducted to assure that the airplanes flying over this property, the air is free of lead? The second issue I have is how much of this land is going to be, or how many of these homes will be designated for low income and ultra low income? Normally, what's set aside is 5%. But in the past, instead of presenting 5%, the developers give us some money. And the money is a lot less than 5% in the market value of these homes. Again, what is the market value of these homes projected to be? $700, $800, $1 million? Who knows? Land's expensive in Oxnard. It's not free anymore. And how can people earning $30 an hour afford to build these homes or live in these homes at $30 an hour, $35 an hour? Another issue I have is the infrastructure. Where's the water going to come from? The city adopted a water neutrality policy in 2018, 2019. So for every new housing development, you're supposed to come up with the water. The city introduced the Urban Water Master Plan a number of years ago, but the city has not fully funded the Urban Water Master Plan. In fact, they've not even built the wells for the Urban Water Master Plan. So where will the water come from if the Urban Water Master Plan never gets built? Because new housing is supposed to provide water for the new property. So I'm not following this EIR, but I've been following the Teal Club EIR, and there might be some issues resolved with this project as well. I've not got my nose into this, and I get my nose into other things. But again, the concern I have is the fact that we're supposed to provide housing for the residents of Oxnard, not for residents outside the area. And most residents in Oxnard cannot afford $700,000, $800,000 homes, but people from outside the area can buy them, and they force out the residents of housing that's supposed to be designed for them and economically affordable for them. So those are some concerns I have. Again, I've not been following this EIR. I've been focusing on other issues, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, and I can address some of those concerns to the best I can now. The air quality issues, there is a discussion regarding air quality assessment in the environmental impact report. Obviously, the issue of lead-based fuels in the airport is something much broader issue, but air quality has been analyzed pertaining to this project in the environmental impact report. Regarding the Urban Water Master Plan and the water supplies, this project has been kind of on the city's radar for about a decade, if not longer. So the project was accounted for in projections in the 2020 Urban Water Master Plan. So when you look in there and you see all the list of pending projects, the Avalon subdivision has been planned for. Again, it's been zoned for residential development for upwards of 40 years, so it's kind of been a known thing coming. Regarding the low-income housing, the project is going to be paying in lieu fees for that, and it went to City Council in 2022 or 2023. I forget which year, but the in lieu fee went to City Council for their consideration, and they accepted that. Interestingly enough, that was kind of one of the first projects that went after the fees were bumped up. I had been involved with projects in the past in Oxnard, and the fee amount for inclusionary housing that developers paid was low. Those fees have been revised up substantially. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but the project will be conditioned to pay the fees as they are at the time that the project gets approved. So it'll be whatever the newest, latest, and greatest fees are.
Okay, next.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for your presentation. One of the questions I have is, you had mentioned a HOA. Is there intended to be a Mello-Roos with this property?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Okay. And one of the other concerns that I have is with the proximity of the airport and the direction that planes take off, airplane noise has been a big issue for a lot of folks out in our beach communities. So, they fly low and they fly at full throttle. So it's been a major issue for homeowners in that area. Just to clarify, is this the property that's south of Fifth Street or it's on the north side of Fifth Street?
We're to the south of Fifth Street.
Okay, yeah. So you're on the south of Fifth Street, and there was a large homeless encampment there. And that's the intended area that you're talking about having a preserved land, which I think is great. But who's going to provide security so that we don't end up with another large homeless encampment there?
So good question. And to clarify about where the homeless encampment is, the slides aren't up there, but there is a sliver of land along the canal that is not owned by the Oxnard Shores Company. It's owned by another entity. The encampment did slightly trickle on to the Oxnard Shores property, but the bulk of it was on the other property. We've been trying to be as diligent as we can about keeping folks off of there in terms of homeless encampments. My hope would be that once that space is activated and people are in there and allowed to utilize it for recreation, we'll be able to see less of that encampment happening, because I think folks kind of get out of the public eye. You kind of sneak back there through holes in the fence that are along the canal and kind of set yourself up. But that would be something we would for sure lay out in terms of a management plan as to how we would deal with that issue.
So is there intended to be perimeter security for that area? Because I know on the North Shore, north of Fifth Street, they've had security there and they've had a fence there.
Yeah.
And no homeless encampments have gone there.
Yeah.
But the property owners have allowed a homeless encampment to get quite large, which they evicted, those homeless. But every time they evict them, it's whack-a-mole, so they just come back.
Right.
So, so that's gonna be a major concern. And then are the new owners gonna be fully aware that they are not in a flight protection zone, but they are in the flight path? So normally the flight path out of Oxnard Airport is supposed to, and this is voluntary, that they'll go over Fifth Street and they'll go over Woolley, and then they'll hang a right, which is not a problem for your project if they're going over Fifth Street, because they're gonna hang a right, and the folks that get on the North Shore property, that's the recommendation from the past noise study, that they hang a right there. But once the North Shore is developed, they're gonna be hanging a right over those folks. So they could hang a left too, and that could put them over the Avalon folks. And the noise is really a major issue. And so, what measures are you gonna take to work with the Airport Authority, which I was part of the Public Advisory Committee for the new noise study, which is not certified yet. But a lot of the recommendations from the 1998 noise study were ignored. And it actually was a group from the Shores area that found that study from Ventura County that they were hiding. So there's a lot of information that would possibly lead to some legal challenges to your development there concerning noise pollution. Larry already brought up the issue of the leaded fuel. So when they're going low and they're at 500 feet, 700 feet, and they're full throttle, that's when more of this lead exhaust. Santa Clara Airport in the Northern California is a very similar airport to ours in Oxnard, and it was shut down due to extremely high lead poisoning for children, and they shut that airport down. But there's no plans on shutting our airport down. I don't see that in the future, but it could concern the future residents of your development.
Thank you. Yeah, and not, to get in the weeds because that's a big issue, but I know the environmental impact report does contain analysis of noise pollution and stuff like that. So when that becomes public, that'll be available for the public to review the impacts there and the assessment that was done by the city.
Okay.
Thanks.
And the in lieu fee. So there's been a number of in lieu fees that have been paid to the city, but we have a hard time tracking that money and finding that money. So I think it's really important that the in lieu fees have an account associated with them so that, you guys are paying so you don't have to provide low income housing. You can make some money off of this project. I get that. But it's really a concern because affordable housing is like the California myth. And then this is not going to be affordable because it's out near the ocean. So what's the estimated cost of these condominiums?
I don't have a price just because it's so hard to determine when this will be built. We've been at this for 15 years now, 10 years since this had its initial plan. So, that's going to change with the real estate market. So, sorry, I don't have an answer for you on what it'll cost.
You've paid, you're going to pay, you got an agreement to pay the in lieu fee. So there's not going to be an affordable housing component to it. But yet, are these going to be for rental? Are they going to be for, single family home ownership? What's the intended use of these? Are they lease, rental? Because often these are outside investors that come in and buy these properties and then they rent them out.
John, I don't know from Toll Brothers if you have anything to add, but they would be units that would be for sale to the public. So I don't know, John, if you have anything additional to add to that, but no, it would be for sale like any other housing development is.
Okay, so is
Yep.
there a percentage that would be for sale and then another percentage that would be for rental?
No, they'd all be for sale units now.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, no problem.
Hello, my name is Jordan Parzik. I'm currently a resident in the Oxnard Dunes on Catamaran Street. I've been working with our neighborhood council for a little over a year now, talking about the amenities in the area. I know that you guys want to add a park in there, which is great. I have 2 young kids. We know every park. We go there all the time. However, what we wanted to present to you guys, we currently have what are called Quimby funds from the city, which are used for recreational purposes. As much as I would love a park within walking distance of us, we already have about 4 in the immediate area. So what we have been trying to come up with, and I have a full presentation here that I don't want to do now. I'll give you this paper afterwards, but when we checked your development, you have different alternatives as to where you were going to build. So I don't know if it's changed since, but it does look like you can still build in that area where the pathway is supposed to go. What we wanted to do is, obviously you guys are a business and you want to sell your homes, but rather than a small park, what we wanted to recommend was maybe something more of a parking lot around 5th Street with, and this is a pretty pro audience here, maybe some pickleball courts. We've done the work, we've seen how much it's going to cost. The Quimby funds should cover a lot of that, which should be mutually beneficial because it won't cost you guys out of pocket. And rather than a small park, which we already have, we can add a novel amenity for the larger, greater community to utilize. On top of that, we would love to have some sort of playground equipment which could potentially be incorporated within the walking path, still using the natural terroir of the dunes, right, with the sand and whatever, similar to Neptune Square Park that we have over in Oxnard Shores currently. So we would love to work with developers on maybe figuring out how we can create some sort of win-win-win situation, as we know that the city is very adamant about not wanting to maintain any more grass parks. They've been very clear about that. The other thing is, I don't know how much of a connection you guys have with the North Shore development, but from as far as we've seen from their plans, they're planning to create a bike path along the canal. We've been discussing if it would be possible to connect that bike path all the way through the canal, through by the right of your development all the way down, so it will connect the North Shore homes down to the Channel Islands homes, and then eventually, hopefully, maybe even go up towards the harbor in a larger project. All of these things can be done cost effectively. You don't have to come in and bulldoze everything. You can use the natural terroir. I just wanted to see if that's something where we could have some correspondence with you guys and maybe get the city involved. I don't know how hard set your plans are, but we wanted to get involved now so we could see if that's something that's a potential option.
Sure, and thanks for your comments. Yeah, just to be very clear, I personally am not ownership. I'm the engineering and land use consultant, but I'm happy to take your suggestions and relay them along to our team. The one caution I do have on that northern bit is it is zoned resource protection. And I think the alternatives you saw in the EIRs referring to what we're required to do under CEQA, which is an alternatives analysis. And that pretty much is what's the best way to say it without sounding super nerdy in planning, a pie in the sky analysis that the state and local agencies make folks do that says, look, this is the proposed project and these are all the other ways you could potentially do it, how feasible those are or not. And one of the alternatives was, what if we move the project up into the resource protection zone? Just academically, would the impacts be less or worse? Now, realistically and practically, that land is zoned resource protection. We have no interest in changing that zoning or changing the city's general plan or local coastal plan to change that. So just to be clear about what those alternatives are, that's part of the CEQA analysis that we have to do because the state says we have to do it that way. But we are not proposing or have explored anything on the RP zone. We have no interest in doing that, but happy to see your slides about the potential ideas for parks amenities out there. So thanks.
Yeah, I know that some of the people who are currently on Catamaran are a little concerned that the houses are going to come in and take away their view. So, you know, obviously it is what it is, but we wanted to see if it was even a potential to suggest that section. So
yeah, no, and willing to look at whatever you have, and yeah, we can chat afterwards too. Cool. So thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm Roger Poirier, Chair of Hobson Park East Neighborhood Council. Former member of the Parks and Rec Commission, and I've been studying Quimby fees around the city. Oxnard Dunes has a Quimby fund right now of $680,000. That's from the most recent development, which is at the corner of Woolley and Harbor. So the question, it's one of the few neighborhoods in Oxnard without a park of its own. So there's no place for it to expend those Quimby funds. We have a couple of other neighborhoods in this similar situation. The fact that you're going to put the Avalon in there with 56 homes and no gated community, that idea went away, right?
Out the window.
Great.
No more.
Okay, so the opportunity here is with the Oxnard Dunes neighborhood extends from Woolley up on the other side of Fifth, and it follows the entire canal. The canal is like the eastern border of the whole thing. So, a lot of things have changed recently in Oxnard. The Mandalay Power Station shut down. They stopped pumping water through the canal. There's a new owner for the Mandalay Power Station. I believe there's a private owner for the canal. Those are really interesting facts. The canal is fascinating. It's got a long history of providing water quality for the harbor, but I don't know how often they pump that water through anymore. So is there an opportunity for some kind of recreational access along the canal? I believe the previous gentleman from Oxnard Dunes was talking about some kind of interesting connection. Great idea. You can go, if it went all the way from Ormond Beach all the way up to Santa Clara River, that'd be one continuous coastal trail. It'd be fantastic. But the question is, so some questions specific for your project. How large is that little parklet you're talking about?
The small parklet that I showed on the slide is about a quarter acre. And
Quarter acre.
Quarter acre, correct.
And it would be maintained by the HOA?
Correct, that's the thought, yes.
But it'd be full public access?
Correct, right. So the public will have the right to come in and utilize the street. We don't have the details ironed out on who's going to be able to access that park. Now, there's not going to be to my knowledge, a gate in front of it or anything like that, but it is going to be a privately owned, that's not a city park, that's a privately owned HOA park. Again.
So yeah, there's interesting distinction in if it's full public access, if it's owned by the city, then this is a general fund neighborhood, so the city would maintain it. So the HOA would maintain it, which would mean that you could probably withdraw access to it because it'd be kind of like a private recreational zone for the homes. So then there would be Quimby in lieu fees, I would imagine, required for the 56 homes that you're talking about. Has that been contemplated?
I don't have the exact details in front of me in terms of the Quimby fees and the discussions that have happened, and I don't want to misspeak, but generally because we are proposing a very substantial donation of land to the city, that would offset
that
the
offsets.
correct,
Okay, well, that
correct.
seems, it's a fascinating idea to put nature trails through the 20 odd acres, 29 acres, really cool idea.
Yeah.
Joining with North Shore is going to have, I believe, a community facilities district, a CFD, so they'll build a park, which is a public park, but they will completely maintain it. If you, interesting question about the offset, but you do have this money hanging out there that is allocated, it doesn't belong to Oxnard Dunes. City Council controls it, but it's allocated for the use of that neighborhood as the first use. If they're not able to figure out how to use it, it'll get used somewhere else. That's not in anybody's best interest, I think, well, except for the city, financial people. But it would be great to be able to use that money, which was generated in Oxnard Dunes, in that neighborhood. So if there's a way to partner with the neighborhood council to discuss with them how to access those Quimby funds that they already have and use it in conjunction with some interesting recreational venue, then that would help use up these Quimby funds, which we have to use. They can't just sit there. And it allows that money to be used in that neighborhood. I think that was the only thing. And the community garden, who would have access to the community garden? Who would be gardening in there?
That would be on the private park. So the idea is those plots would be for community residents living in the proposed development in the
Avalon.
56
So
units.
those would be
Correct.
Avalon, community garden for Avalon residents?
Correct, correct.
Not for Oxnard Dunes residents, Avalon
Correct,
residents? Okay.
correct. Now, the idea is, and again, just to be really clear, the idea is that that park will be owned, maintained by the HOA. We don't have any intention of putting up a gate saying, hey, if you're walking through the neighborhood and your kid wants to play on the playgrounds, we're not gonna be out there saying, no, you can't do that. But is a private park, not a city park, just to be clear, but we
So,
don't, yeah.
What I see the best win-win-win opportunity here is to have the city planner working on this. Have you sit down with North Shore? Have you sit down with the neighborhood council? And also the people at Westport, because that's the major park that's nearby. It's a fantastic park, a little bit tricky to get to because you have to cross Woolley, mid-neighborhood, not great, but
Yeah.
you know, the opportunity here is to do something for everybody that works together. And, you know, they have resources they can share with you. So I hope, you know, good luck with it.
Thank you, and thanks for the comments and suggestions.
Thank you. Angela?
So they kind of took all my park recommendations and said them already, but so I'm not going to regurgitate, just say that I support all these ideas. I'm the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission. So, but I did want to make a comment on your housing design. Can you make it prettier? Because I'm not a big fan of that architecture. All I see is just blocks. They look like Lego blocks to me. And I think that being a coastal community, we should be taking pride in our architecture. And I don't mean to totally slam the poor architect who did these, but I think we can do something that a little bit more attractive. Look at the old bungalow courts. It's kind of like, looks like you guys took a cue from there. Maybe look at some of the historical Oxnard, go through and look at some of our bungalow courts and then adapt it to what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the comments.
Thank you,
I'll pass those
Angela.
along.
Next.
Excuse me, my name's Steve, and thank you so much for the presentation. A couple things that people have triggered, but the reason I'm up here is to ask you about the open space. And so is the parking lot and the trail that you showed on the map, will you be building that as part of this development? Or is that a future depending on who your partner is?
I think a lot of that is to be determined depending upon who ends up taking it. The intention is we would work with whoever takes it to build those amenities there. I don't want to speak to specifics yet as to the terms of the timing or anything of that, though, until we know who takes it. But the intent is, yes, willing to build the parking lot and the nature trails we showed there. But
Okay. I mean, I would say obviously that's a big pitch to the community, to your donating. You've mentioned it several times, which is great, but to have the parking lot and the trail so that it's a real amenity to the community and not a future TBD would be highly desirable, I would say. And then I want to comment, the gentleman mentioned Westport. I actually live in Westport. We have a beautiful park, as you probably know, at the corner of Harbor and at the corner of Woolley and the canal. It'd be very close for these families, be wonderful for them. Will not be easy for them to get at because they have to cross Woolley, and that's quite busy. But I throw that out there to this idea of making something that works for the greater area. And then the gentleman that mentioned the bike path, I want to play on that as well. We have amazing bike, hiking, walking trails around the harbor that you can take. I ride my bike all the way through Oxnard. It's a wonderful town for biking. And Ventura has a wonderful network that starts in the harbor. And between here and there is 6 miles of suicide. And I have wonderful biking friends that won't ride on that road because you're on a class 2 bike lane, you're nodding your head. Anything we could do, I think would be desirable to the people who were thinking of buying these homes, to North Shore. And the more we can do to create an integrated bikeway, bring these two wonderful biking communities together, the better.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for that suggestion.
Thank you.
And glad to hear you like the Westport Park. Our firm designed that community in Seabridge back in the day. So glad it's being put to good use. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody online that wants to make comments? Doesn't look like it. Okay, we got one more, and then we'll do the desk after that.
Hi there, I'm Tom McAnally. I'm the
chair of the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council, which is the 4 HOAs, including Westport. And one of the things we've been watching very carefully is the development just north of you, because they're using bioswales, is what they call them, to take water off of the development and put it in the canal. The bioswale is theoretically to remove any pollution. What is the drainage arrangement for you in that regard?
Yeah, so all the flow on the site goes down south on Canal, kind of to that entrance, the southerly entrance. At that point, we have catch basins. They go through what we call a modular wetland, is how you can describe it. Very technical engineering thing, but it goes through, cleans the water, and then we're tying into the city storm drain system. And then from there, it eventually outlets to the canal. So there was multiple years, about 2 years of coordination with the city engineering department to come up with a solution that,
Okay.
yeah, so we have worked all this through extensively with Tai Chow, who's the city engineer.
All right, I know that.
Lots of years, of years. So yes.
Thank you. Does anybody up here have anything? Go ahead, Doug.
You talked this, going back to Mr. Pori here, was saying about this private park, public access, it's maintained by the HOA. Do you see any problem with like a liability issue? I mean, public person injures themselves and then the HOA becomes liable. Is that like do you see any problems with that or?
I don't know if John has anything to add, but that's a little bit above my pay grade as the civil engineer land use planner, so I don't want to wade into answering legality questions.
My next thing is people have been, in airport noise problem, and I'm not sure if you know of this. There was what they call a Part 150 study that was done by the airport, the county airports. When they went out and they put noise sensors, one of them was put in my backyard. Do you know if any of the contours, what they call noise contours, were incorporated in your area? Were any?
I know the
EIR report
contains a discussion. I do not know that off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Do you know that if that is incorporated in the EIR, the Part 150 study?
To the best of my knowledge, it is. But again, I don't know off the top of my head. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, wait, did you have questions? All right. All right. So let's move on to item F, neighborhood chair reports. Neighborhood chairs may individually report on items of interest or concern to their neighborhoods. The INCO cannot enter into a detailed discussion or take action on any item presented during these reports. Okay, go ahead.
Hi there, Tom McAnally again, Channel Islands Neighborhood Council. We had our quarterly general meeting 2 weeks ago. I got stuck. I'm the chairman again. I was 3 years ago. And hopefully we'll get a lot of stuff done, and I'll get it done in a year. We had 80 people present at the meeting and 25 on Zoom. So we had a big participation. Alex Wynn, who was here, who was now since gone, gave a great presentation that was well received. We had the election. I've documented everything over to Adam. And let's see here. We continue to work with the city on the craft water on the CI Harbor water quality study. And we are also paying lots of attention to what goes on in the airport. And that's where my partner in crime right there is Tannehill, Steve Tannehill. All right, that's it.
Thank you very much. Abby?
Deborah Arvalo, South Bank Chair, and it's going to take me a little bit because I left my paper in my car and I refused to go out there. So Our meeting was held on January 29th, Wednesday, and we had a good crowd of people. Also, Diana Velzi came as well to get information. Two of the key topics were, besides the election, was the traffic engineer's street report that we had in regards to some main streets in our area, which is Stone Creek, North 8th Street, and Honeysuckle. So we got some information, questions were answered. In addition to that, we had city as well as county people to discuss the levy and the work that will be conducted on Ventura Road. And our big concern was on Ventura Road, they were going to go ahead and close it down, and there was a lot of questions raised on specifics. So with having the engineer there, we were able to ask, and I requested that he give the South Bank neighborhood information on dates. We want specific dates, and if they were in accordance with and communicating with the people doing the construction further down Ventura Road as you enter the freeway, because the two main arteries for us as a segue to Ventura is Stone Creek to Ventura Road or North 8th Street. So that's the two ways that we get out. So we wanted information. And we were told that we'd get confirmation on those dates, and he would give it to us. Our South Bank Facebook is now up to 85 people. Very proud of that. And we started just our chair, our group, our board, starting with social media, and this is working quite well. The last thing that was of interest was the information that we got from our beat officer about the ring connection, just to do with some of our neighbors, and we are worried about all the homeless that we get from our area that go, this is a segue. So if they're building or doing construction, we have a lot of homeless going through, which is fine. But in addition to that, we have a lot of people going around and viewing. And I was told by our beat officer that Sergio Garcia of Sierra Linda has a ring map. And I think we're going to go ahead and try to incorporate that. Our board has suggested and try to empower our neighbors by saying that we want to go ahead and have a phone tree. I guess that's what it would be called. And every street would have at least two people. Hey, this car has been around, doesn't look like it belongs here. And then later on you find out that, trash can, a cart has been taken, a hose was taken from a neighbor. This way, you can say this is going on. And what Sergio did is he actually did the homes that had rings, and I think we're gonna go ahead and follow suit and see if we can go ahead and get that as part of a ring map for our South Bank neighborhood. And so we're very interested in that, and we're looking forward to giving information on how that's going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If the noise in the background is bothering people, would somebody be willing to close the door? If not, we'll just proceed. Okay, Sandy?
Hi, Sandy Diaz from Rio Lindo neighborhood, and our next meeting will be March the 20th, which is a Thursday, at Rio Lindo School Cafeteria. So we hope to have a good turnout. And the one issue that we have been having is at our local park, Rio Lindo Park. This started back in December where they brought piles of mulch. And we were all wondering what are these for? It took like 3 weeks to find out. We emailed, we called. And just to make a long story short, when they did come to spread the mulch, because the park on Blanca Street side has different sections of a fence, they just plowed through the ground cover, the tractor did, destroying a lot of the ground cover, the plants, the poppies, and scraped 2 of the trees. And because the fence is in different sections, they did a lot of damage to the fence. So, we did call, one of the neighbors on Blanca's side called a neighbor and myself. We all took pictures, so we have a lot of pictures of evidence of all the damage that they did. So, it was like a one-day thing that they wanted to get the mulch out, but it did destroy the fence, the trees, and the ground cover. So I drove by there on my way here today, and it seems like one of the fence pieces was fixed, but they just picked up all the broken pieces and just put them all together like a puzzle, which is not acceptable. So we're going to have to deal with that now. But we're still seeking the answers. I know the neighbor on Blanca's side has talked to people in the city, and we're still calling and asking our city council person, Aaron Starr, for help. And so, yeah, we have been getting help on that, but just this craziness of them coming in. Rio Lindo. So we're still trying to investigate that and see. And tomorrow morning, I'll go and take more pictures just to see. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
John Ike, Bryce Canyon North. So on the February 27th, Bryce Canyon North and Bryce Canyon South will have a meeting at Eo Green School cafeteria. It'll be it'll include a neighborhood election for Bryce Canyon North and Bryce Canyon South. And Michaela Perez, our city council person in District 6, will be there to give a presentation, including upgrades to Carty Park. So if you're in Bryce Canyon South, that would be of interest to you, since that's where Carty Park is. And then Alex Nguyen, the city manager, will give a presentation, and the fire department will also give a presentation on fire safety. And then we will also have our ever popular potluck.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Well.
My name is Larry Stein. I'm the chairman of Linwood Neighborhood Council. We're having a first neighborhood meeting 2+ years. Our speakers are going to be speakers from El Concilio. They're going to be talking about the general services El Concilio has. We're also going to talk about immigration. Not that immigration is of any concern to anybody here, but they're going to provide some information. I don't know what they're going to talk about, except it's going to be immigration and how some of these immigration issues can be addressed and concerns people have. So it's going to be our first neighborhood meeting 2+ years. I encourage anybody who wants to come to the meeting to listen to the presentation from El Concilio. I don't know how many people are familiar what El Concilio does. I'm very unfamiliar with what they do, except that they're very active in the community and serve all sorts of people. So I would encourage anybody who wants to come from outside the neighborhood, anybody who comes from outside of the neighborhood to join us at the meeting. It's going to be Thursday night, starting around 6:15 California time. So you know what that means. So I hope to see you all there, and thank you very much for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Isaac.
Hello, Isaac Call of Seaview neighborhood. Glad to be back in the swing of things and to see some familiar faces, so glad to see everybody. We'll be kicking off our neighborhood council meetings for the year on February 20th, so just a couple weeks. We'll have someone coming from the fire department services to talk about disaster preparedness. Little late, but still pretty topical. And then we'll have the city manager come and give his presentation as well, if anybody's interested. Also, if the executive board, if it's still a function to reactivate dormant neighborhood councils, I think I have a lead, so just tell me who to talk to and I'll try and connect you. He wasn't able to make it here today, but it's you, Diana. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Ronald? Thank you.
Good evening, Ronald Arwejo, East Village. This past January 22, we had a neighborhood election meeting. Our best attended in the past 5 years.
Excuse me. All right, go ahead, Ronald, sorry.
I'll start again. On January 22, we had a neighborhood election meeting, our best attended in the past 5 years, about 40 from the neighborhood and 60 in all. We also elected a full board, and thank you to INCO Chair Diana Velzi for assisting us with the election administration with our neighborhood's first contested election since its reactivation in 2018. I was elected as chair of our neighborhood council, along with Vice Chair Alexis Schmidt and members at large Sandy Henke, Lois Huff, and Christy Anderson. In March 15, we're going to have our bulky item drop-off event, and then our next neighborhood meeting is in May, and we already have a full agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronald. Is there anybody else? Oh, Chris?
Chris Bissonette, Blackstock South. We had a meeting on the 15th of January. Alex Nguyen was there, as well as Michaela Perez. Very good meeting. We talked about shopping cart retrieval and so forth, and as well as the issues with crimes in our neighborhood. Assembly member Bennett will be in this Saturday at the South Oxnard School, or South Oxnard Community Center. And he's going to be discussing things that are concerned with Ventura County. The flyer's been out, and if you wish to attend, do an RSVP. It's from 10:30 to noon. Let's see. Michaela Perez will be having a 19th February meeting from 6 to 7 p.m., and she's going to be corralling all of District 6 over at the Oxnard Center as well, on the corner of Bard and Saviors. And let's see here, 3 April, Blackstock South is going to have a meeting primarily to get the ball running for the neighborhood cleanup on April 12th. That's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, Ponzo, did you have anything? Do you have anything? Done?
We had our meeting on the 16th, and just covered a few items. We basically were talking about crime in our neighborhood is pretty minimal, and basically our budget. And oh, by the way, we did find. I remember you talked to me about the former chair had money, and I found a checkbook. I just got to find out if the account's still active. The other thing is, we planned another meeting for March 4th, and we're trying to get, again, disaster preparedness, another speaker to come in from the city, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay, Lisa, do you have anything? All right, so let's move on then. There's nobody else in the, no? Okay. Let's move on to item G, Executive Board reports. Executive Board may individually report on items of interest concern. The INCO cannot enter into a detailed discussion or take action on any item presented during these reports. Does anybody here have anything that they'd like to add or discuss? No? Okay, I don't have anything today either, so let's just move on. Okay, future agenda items for INCO general membership meetings. Anybody who has any ideas, or go ahead.
Please.
Hi.
I'm Roger Poirier, Hudson Park East Chair. Executive Board, I want to thank you for today's meeting. The agenda was perfect. It was a fantastic meeting. This is exactly the kind of meeting we should be having, where you have something that's of interest to everybody who lives in Oxnard, like the Carnegie, and you had a very important issue in a neighborhood that affects not just that neighborhood, but the whole area. So I was very excited to come tonight. I have less interest in coming and hearing something from the county about jobs or something that isn't more specifically related to neighborhoods. I would love it if there were future agenda items where, for instance, Channel Islands Neighborhood Council talked about why are they so successful, right? I mean, it's like all going on for them. How do they do it? Rose Park, I would love to hear, how does Rose Park do it? You know, because they've put in a lot of hours going door to door. They've got their own neighborhood watch program still active, right? Yeah, so, you know, how do these neighborhoods do it? I've been working Hobson Park East since 2014. I've dropped 10,000 flyers in my neighborhood. I can get a quorum about once every other year. So it's like, I'm just looking for help, you know, and if other neighborhood chairs have figured it out, what's the magic? You know, please share that. A couple things. I thought it's great to see Larry Stein elected to something, and coming here and speaking up about issues that we can actually do something about, like his concerns about the water master plan and ASR wells. Well, we have an ASR well that's being put into Campus Park. It'll be a test injection well to be the first time that our recycled water from the AWPF gets put back into the ground. And this is like to lead to, I don't know, they should have 4 or 5 of these injection wells. Where are they going to put them? And what will that mean for the future of water in Oxnard? That's a great agenda item, just something about water. I don't know if anybody else got a push-pull from United Water Conservation District. They apparently want to run an enormous bond measure. I mean, it's like $300 million, $400 million bond measure in order to fix some of their infrastructure that helps them, do their, follow, on their mission to provide water in their district. But, that's, so, and I think we need a future agenda item of just discussions about water, all the various water issues. And I would recommend Steve Nash as a guy to consult to, to kind of name all the different issues that could be talked about. Let's see, the water plan. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else have any recommendations for the future?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up, I'd like to actually have a presentation on the toxic plume issue that's going on in Isaac's neighborhood.
Yeah, I was gonna, and actually, there's like 2 or 3 neighborhoods that are working on some of the same issues. Maybe we can have a joint discussion.
Because I see it's also, my neighborhood is right adjacent to his.
Right.
And all the sampling
Exactly.
wells, all the way to hit the perimeter are testing above screening levels. And I don't know when the last time the aquifers were mapped out and surveyed. And I'd like to get that information and provide some kind of presentation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's perfect. And then I'd also like to see a joint neighborhood presentation about the things that they've learned about the airport or the things that they'd like to see fixed. So we can maybe combine and do all those things. Is there any other recommendations for future agenda items? Okay. All right, with that, without objection or hearing any new business, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Right.